Today, the Volkswagen Group revealed that they will fire more than 35,000 staff. However, it could end up being much worse, says a study that was revealed today, claiming a further 25,000 jobs could be lost because of Donald Trump's policies. Now, if you actually have a good look at what Donald Trump is saying he's going to do, it's entirely plausible. And if you think about it, General Motors and Ford, Stellantis, these companies, they're in trouble. They are. I mean, they're getting killed in China. They are in a position where the US government really does have to implement protectionist policies, otherwise their sales will continue to fall. And there is the very real risk that one of them or all of them will go bankrupt. So these measures are needed, but the European Union is engaging in its own protectionist measures. Here's what is about to happen according to this new study. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to have you with us. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Over the past 3.5 years, I've reported 6,500 times, 6,500 videos. A lot of that about the EV transition, about disruption, about Moore's Law, about technological disruption and how the Chinese, along with Tesla, would eventually disrupt the entire automotive market. Now, many experts have predicted the similar things. However, in the West, all of this has been pretty much ignored. The automotive industry, the industrial industry, I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars are about to be disrupted. And this change, it's irreversible. It can't be changed. I mean, once this entire disruption happens, it cannot go back. I mean, we're talking about a situation where once one country dominates the automotive industry, as it is beginning to do so, it may be too late. About 80% of all electric cars are currently made in China, and they're made about half the price of anywhere else in the world. As a result, Trump and the US and the European Union are putting tariffs on Chinese EVs. The tariffs on car imports threatened by future US President Donald Trump could hit European manufacturers and their suppliers very hard. They say, Germany says that the automotive industry in the country is in crisis. They're firing around 10,000 people every single month. Apparently, Mercedes may have to fire up to 16,600 people in Germany. Porsche, their sales have gone down 42%. They're apparently considering firing 10,000 people. And this is a further blow to what is already happening. The result of analysis by consultancy company Kearney says that around 25,000 jobs will be at risk at Volkswagen Group, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi, and Stellantis, which is Peugeot, Fiat, Chrysler, and Opel, which have a particularly large US business as well, as a further 1,000 of the largest European suppliers. Now, 25,000 is, in my opinion, an enormous understatement. I believe there could be up to 100,000 jobs lost, and I think that's simply being realistic. This is despite the fact that the manufacturers partly serve the market from American plants as well. Around 640,000 vehicles are exported from Europe to the USA every year. Depending on the scenario, the tariffs could lead to sales losses of between $3.2 and $9.8 billion at the manufacturer level, which in turn would impact the suppliers, says Kearney partner Nils Kuhlwein. Now, here's the thing. This study doesn't really show you what's happening because it only looks at the United States. It's not looking at what's happening in Mexico or Brazil or Central and South America in its entirety. Or what about other countries? What about Southeast Asia? Places where Germany sells vehicles, the Chinese are disrupting them. So you've got the US basically saying, we're putting huge tariffs on your vehicles. Then you've got all these other countries that are huge car markets saying, yeah, well, actually, your German cars are good. They're too expensive. We don't need them anymore. That is essentially what's happening. Around 640,000 vehicles, though, are exported from Europe to the USA every year, depending on the scenario. The tariffs could lead to sales losses of up to $9.8 billion. And that's a very big sum because that's coming on top of all the disruption already happening. Now, Kearney has examined two scenarios. In the first, the tariffs are passed on in full to American consumers, which is why fewer buyers will demand German cars. So if German companies, there's no way out for them because if they increase the prices enormously to account for these tariffs, then customers will simply stop buying those cars. Well, the majority of customers will anyway. Kearney assumes that customers react more strongly to price increases when it comes to EVs. The so-called price elasticity of demand is higher. This is also indicated, for example, by the decline in sales in Germany after the purchase premium for electric cars was abolished. This means that a price increase of 10% could reduce demand for combustion engines by around 10%, but for electric vehicles by up to 30%, he says. The calculation shows that with tariffs of 10, 15, or 20%, demand for imported vehicles could fall by a total of 60,000 to 185,000 units. This would mean a maximum loss of sales for manufacturers at factory prices of $10 billion and for suppliers of up to $7.3 billion. Since around 40% of suppliers' costs are fixed, such as personnel costs, profitability would also deteriorate. Kearney calculates that this would put 6,000 to 23,000 jobs in Europe at immediate risk. As I mentioned before though, the US is important, but it's nowhere near as important as the Chinese car market, because Germany imports or exports more cars to China than it does to the USA. And considering the fact that the sales of German vehicles in China have fallen at a rapid pace this year, this is like a double whammy. Basically Germany is getting pinched from China and they're about to be pinched in the USA. And they're the two biggest car markets in the world. The third largest car market is actually Europe. So even though the European car market is big and German car manufacturers probably want to just maybe try and sell more vehicles in Europe, the reality is the European car market is actually not that big. It's only around 15 million cars a year, whereas the Chinese car market is over 30 million cars a year. So what does all of this mean? Well, it means that the German automotive industry is in a crisis. And I'm not the only one reporting this. Many different German media organizations are saying this every day, that there is real panic in Germany. If car manufacturers in Germany do not pass the tariffs on to consumers or customers in America, but instead pass them on to their suppliers, their profits could fall by up to 3.1 billion euros if they pass on the additional cost of 60%. As a result, as many as 25,000 jobs would be at risk, according to Coolwine. The German automotive industry is under huge pressure, demand due to weak demand, falling market shares in China, and the cost of the transformation to electromobility. I mean, to be honest, Germany doesn't make its own batteries, it doesn't make a lot of the things that go into EVs, and it has to import those. But here's the real risk, right? The European Union has imposed enormous tariffs of up to 57% on Chinese EVs for some brands. China is considering retaliating. Now, if China was to impose similar tariffs on German-made vehicles in China, well, I think there really could be bankruptcies coming to Germany. I'm talking the major automakers within only a few years' time. Because imagine, Trump puts tariffs on German cars, China does the same, market share in the world's biggest market of China is already falling. We're already looking at, potentially 60,000 jobs being fired over the next 12 months in Germany alone. I mean, this is a real legitimate crisis, especially when these companies have so much debt. The Volkswagen Group now has more than $240 billion in debt. That's more debt than any other company in the world. The company that had more debt than the Volkswagen Group was Evergrande. Evergrande, well, they no longer exist. They went bankrupt. Suppliers like Bosch, ZF, Schaeffler, and Bros have announced in recent months they will cut tens of thousands of jobs. Volkswagen says it will cut more than 35,000. The industry is about to be changed, and it's not going to be good for Germany.